I'm going to start with the rude version. This video is better than its own title. Steven Spielberg believes in aliens sounds like clickbait for people who want either revelation or ridicule. What StarTalk actually delivers is something more interesting and, frankly, more adult. A conversation about why alien stories keep functioning as a moral test for humanity, even when the evidence for literal visitation stays frustratingly thin. So if you came here expecting Spielberg to dump classified certainty on Neil deGrasse Tyson's desk, no. If you came here for a serious, surprisingly generous argument about what UFO culture says about us, this episode is unusually good. The central substantive claim is basically this. We should stay open to the possibility of alien life or contact, not because the current public evidence is overwhelming, but because human perception is limited. The universe is absurdly large, and stories about contact reveal something real about our politics and psychology. That is a smart claim. It is also not the same claim as Spielberg believes aliens have visited Earth. The video deliberately lives in that gap. Spielberg's renewed fascination gets tied to the 2017 New York Times reporting on military UFO encounters, but the discussion never produces a chain of evidence from blurry anomaly to extraterrestrial visitor. It's using disclosure culture as a philosophical launchpad, not as a solved case file. And that's where the episode earns real respect. It is much more honest than the thumbnail premise. Neil keeps dragging the conversation back toward epistemology, what counts as evidence, what our senses can and cannot do, why instruments routinely discover realities our bodies miss. That is the strongest explanatory spine in the whole hour. The argument isn't trust every sighting. It's don't confuse the limits of your perception with the limits of the universe. For a mainstream celebrity interview about aliens, that's a remarkably disciplined frame. It turns the topic away from campfire certainty and towards scientific humility. Then Spielberg does something I wish more UFO conversations would do. He treats aliens less like monsters and more like a mirror. When the discussion shifts into empathy, disclosure, and whether contact would expose our own colonial instincts, the video stops being trivia about lights in the sky and becomes a critique of human self-mythology. That stretch, especially the questions around whether we automatically imagine advanced life as invasive, predatory, or imperial because that's what power has looked like on Earth, is the episode's most valuable turn. It doesn't prove aliens are benevolent. It proves our default cinematic paranoia is historically contaminated. But here's the weak point, and it matters. The video borrows the mood of UFO disclosure without doing the evidentiary labor that mood implies. Mentioning smartphones as a kind of global surveillance network is rhetorically slick. Everyone carries a camera, therefore surely we'd know more by now. But it cuts both ways. If billions of cameras haven't given us robust, repeatable, high-quality public evidence, that fact should tighten the skepticism, not just intensify the intrigue. The episode glances at that tension rather than really wrestling with it. It wants the romance of something is being seen without forcing the harder question of why the public record is still so mushy. And I think the video knows exactly how seductive that mushiness is. The talk about whether governments would tell us the truth if they had evidence, and whether the timing of file releases around a film is just a coincidence, is handled with a light touch that I actually admire. It doesn't go full conspiratorial. It lets the possibility hang there because the hanging itself is the cultural phenomenon. That's the right instinct. The danger is that ambiguity becomes its own emotional evidence. The viewer is left with a feeling of suppressed significance even when the actual evidentiary standard hasn't moved an inch. Then David Koepp shows up and, weirdly, clarifies the whole episode. Because once the screenwriter enters, the video stops pretending this is just about belief and starts exposing the machinery of why alien stories work. Koepp's value here is not trivia about script pages. It's the reminder that science fiction is a delivery system for primal fears, moral bargaining, and social rehearsal. When he and Tyson get into the line between scientific plausibility and narrative necessity, the episode becomes strongest again. Not because it resolves the alien question, but because it admits the more honest one. What kinds of stories do we need in order to think about the unknown without collapsing into either propaganda or nonsense? My favorite section is the morally strange one around villains, empathy, and the idea that aliens are people too. On paper, that sounds soft. In practice, it's the sharpest part of the discussion because it attacks one of the laziest habits in blockbuster sci-fi: the alien as pure narrative utility, a thing that exists to punish, unify, or terrify humans. Spielberg's career has obviously fed that machine and complicated it at the same time, so hearing him sit in the contradiction is fascinating. The episode doesn't absolve the trope. It asks why we keep needing an other that either saves us or gives us permission to become brutal. That generosity is the thing I kept coming back to. StarTalk could have done the cynical version of this. Bait Spielberg into mystical declarations, let Tyson play the stern rationalist, cash the conflict. Instead, the episode keeps choosing a more difficult balance. Tyson doesn't humiliate wonder. Spielberg doesn't demand that wonder be mistaken for proof. Koepp doesn't reduce science to decorative jargon. For an internet ecosystem that usually treats aliens as either a punchline or a cult, this is unusually civilized. It respects curiosity without laundering speculation into fact. That is a harder tonal achievement than it looks. I do think the episode protects itself with Spielberg's aura a little too much. The title sells belief. The conversation sells interpretive openness. Those are not identical products. If you're a skeptical viewer, you could fairly say the strongest part of the argument is also its biggest vulnerability. By focusing on the limits of human knowledge, the video makes it easier to respect the mystery without demanding proportionate evidence for any specific extraterrestrial claim. That's intellectually classy, but it can also function like a velvet rope around the hard question. What exactly, in this hour, should change my confidence about alien visitation? Not much. What should change is my respect for why the subject persists. So my verdict is emphatically positive, with one asterisk in thick marker. As a piece of evidence for Spielberg believes aliens are here, this doesn't close the case. As a piece of cultural criticism disguised as an alien interview, it's excellent, thoughtful, humane, and far more rigorous than the title suggests. It understands that UFO discourse is partly a science question, partly a storytelling question, and partly a confession about what humans' fear power will do when it meets the unknown. That's a rich hour. If this channel is going to keep feeding big claims through that kind of pressure test, I want to be there the minute the next one lands. So subscribe if you want future uploads challenged before the hype gets to settle.